Every guy has times in their life when they just get like super motivated. I don't know why. Usually it's super late at night when I should be sleeping. You just like start doing push-ups and being like, yeah, I'm gonna get jacked. I'm slept on. You know, that kind of thing. In short, you've become a morning routine guy. Now, most morning routine guys end up falling off the wagon after a couple days, but some learn to actually integrate it, and they just become like normal people with healthy habits. Crazy, right? But there is a third option. The morning routine guy is evolving. There's a chance that you become so lost in the sauce that you merge with the sauce. These people get caught in like a full-body Chinese finger trap of grind set. And it brings me no pleasure to report that that is indeed what I fear has happened to the subject of today's video, Bryan Johnson. Bryan Johnson was a tech guy. To make a long story short, he sold off Venmo for like $1 billion and rode off into the sunset. But his recent claim to fame is his assertion that he has reversed his biological age through a series of esoteric medical procedures, such as avoiding sunlight, intergenerational blood transfusions, and veganism. Also attaching a wire to his penis to measure the number of erections he gets while he sleeps. This guy takes his health pretty seriously. The reason I'm making this video is because the reactions to this guy online are like so crazy. They're so polarized. A lot of people think that he's like the second coming of Andrew Huberman. He's about to like crack the code on immortality. If you go on his videos, half the comments are like, he is literally so brave for sacrificing his life to eat pills and live in the Iron Man house. He's making real life ChatGPT to measure his testosterone levels. Put some freaking respect on his name. But the other half of the people, I don't know what is going on with them, but like seeing somebody live a healthy life just tweaks them out. It triggers some kind of insecurity in their brains, and they just say the most out-of-pocket things. Bro is literally on 1%. I hope he gets hit by a bus. He paid $2 million just to look like a lizard person. And if you're either one of those people, you can click off now. This video is not gonna have what you're looking for. I'm just tell you that. Anyways, I guess I should stop beating around the bush and talk about the actual Bryan Johnson experience. So what are his videos like? I would say strange is the best way to describe them. I mean, obviously, like Bryan himself has the look and personality of your stock standard Silicon Valley replicant. You could honestly swap this guy out for Mark Zuckerberg and I would be none the wiser. I'm not trying to be mean, like it's kind of like endearing.
I've yet to choke on pills, although I think several haters are hoping that I choke on the pills. It would be pretty ironic.
But I gotta say, sometimes he does say stuff that is just downright odd.
A long, healthy life united by the beauties of biology and not divided by the tribalism, destruction, and violence of the mind.
But also the actual content on his channel is weird too. He asks these super interesting questions that actually have very boring answers. Why does he take 100+ pills a day? Because the computer says he needs pills to live longer. So he takes the pills so that he can live longer. Why I'm spending millions to be 18 again? Because I don't want to die. Will my son's blood make me younger? And the answer is no, obviously. Nothing can make you younger. Time is a one-way street. All of our bones will be bleached and our names will be dust. Nothing can stop what is coming, Bryan. But in the same token, blood transfusion can reverse certain biological age markers, so effectively it might put a little bit more time on the clock. Will my son's blood make me younger? Can we just meditate on how incredible that title is for a minute? I mean, honestly, yeah, that's very normal. A lot of dads are asking the same question. Whenever I come home from college, my dad is always like bugging me to go to the blood bank. It's like, dude, I already gave you 3 quarts. I don't have a son. I'm dry over here. I gotta have a kid, dude. I'm missing out on blood. Isn't this like exactly what people accuse like Hillary and them of doing? That they're like harvesting children to stay alive? You cannot blame people for thinking that when like this is what our elites are doing. The Venmo guy is like getting blood transfusions from his son. Peter Thiel is getting blood transfusion from young people who aren't his son. And in a more general poetic sense, I do think that people have a feeling that like we're being exploited and our future is being stolen by a system that we're not in control of. But that's a topic for last video. And when it comes to like celebrity anti-aging protocols, hooking your penis up to a wire at night is not the strangest by a long shot.
What are you pushing into the skin?
Well, you push in whatever the facialist would like to insert into your pores.
But what is it?
It is an extraction from a piece of skin that came from a young person far, far away. and they somehow figured out how to extract.
It's foreskin from a Korean baby.
Another thing that I think is funny about Bryan Johnson's whole shtick is he has the same name as Liver King. And I think they make an interesting compare-contrast because they're both in the public spotlight as a result of a very slick influencer marketing campaign. And they're both health guys. They both play on the fear that the way we live our lives is like designed to make people sick. And honestly, they're not wrong. These guys are smart entrepreneurs who recognize a market need. And they both sell us these sort of like idealized caricatures of health. Liver King sells us their own past. He's like out in a field on tren, like yelling at the camera in like bison horns and eating raw organ meat.
Because why would you eat a vegetable when you can devour a testicle?
Then you look at Bryan Johnson and he's like in a pod getting shot with lasers, eating like 300 pills a day. Anyway, back to the Bryan at hand. I want to look now at one clip that I think is really revealing of his philosophy.
If we said, what is the single principle today? I think it's really simple. It's don't die. That's it.
This clip makes me think of a moment from Dune where Oscar Isaac's character mortally wounds the villain, Baron Harkonnen, and he's forced to retreat to this like sludge vat to heal. And I just wonder if Bryan could go into that sludge vat and like stop the clock on his aging, would he do it? You have to live your whole life in the vat, but you never age. There has to be a point where he would say, okay, this is too much. I'm not liking this anymore. Or would he just live his whole life in that vat? I have no idea. Is there ever a point where staying alive gets in the way of living? Bryan Johnson is a guy who everything he does is measured and tracked. Every meal he eats, every second of his day, it's optimized. It's accounted for.
My bedtime is fast approaching and I just don't negotiate with my bedtime, ever.
He's not only a morning routine guy, he's just like routine guy. And for a guy who utilizes science so much, he actually seems very down on his own brain.
A long, healthy life united by the beauties of biology and not divided by the tribalism, destruction, and violence of the mind.
He's given up control over his own function as a human, over to like a health algorithm. And in this process, he mistrusts his passions because to him, they can only do bad. Binge eating at night or not taking your zinc pills or whatever. Because most people are a slave to their passions. They're a slave to their body in the same way that he is, but they're a slave to their limbic system, not their frontal cortex. And so when these normal people see Bryan, they say, oh, this guy's crazy. He must hate his life. He must be depressed, because they'd be depressed. Bryan's haters are projecting how they would feel if they lived that lifestyle because they depend on consumption in order to feel whole. They've been trained to equate consumption with the good life because they have no purpose. They have no techne. Oh no, techne sounds Greek. Is he really about it? I think the central question of this whole discussion is, what is health good for? For Bryan, health is a good in and of itself. But to me, and I think to most people, health is a means to an end. And what is that end? Well, for people that I just caricatured, for Bryan's haters, for perhaps the average American, consumption is the end. People live to feel good and distract themselves from their inevitable demise. Because again, they have no meaning in their life. They have no purpose. But there is another path. That word I mentioned, techne, roughly translates to craft or art. And by arts and crafts, I don't mean like third grade hand turkeys or whatever. I mean your thing, your pursuit, your purpose. And I would argue that my purpose is, or at least should be, superior to fulfilling my cravings, the way that maybe a lot of people sort of order their life. But ultimately, if you really have a calling, if you really found your techne and you're pursuing it to the fullest, it may require you to sacrifice your health a little bit. This is why we admire athletes and artists and workmen who put it all on the line in order to achieve greatness, because they are sacrificing themselves, they're sacrificing their pleasure, they're sacrificing their health to achieve their techne. Now, obviously, you have to take care of yourself, but I would argue that in order to lead a good life, we all have to find and pursue our techne. If I need to miss a little bit of sleep or, God forbid, go outside in the sun in order to achieve my goals, I should do that. To Bryan's credit, like we can recognize here that His health and his techne are one and the same. His purpose is staying alive. This guy clearly loves getting hooked up to machines and getting hit with lasers and doing chin-ups. It's just his thing. My point is just that I'd rather live a full life than a long life. And I would say that health is a necessary but not sufficient component to the good life. Funny enough, I think the movie Avatar actually is a really good example of this dichotomy that I'm talking about. In Avatar: Way of Water, we get to see two kind of competing visions of immortality. The humans hunt these like whale creatures and violently extract this like fluid from their brains. And anybody who drinks this fluid, their aging stops. It's this very like extractive, environmentally taxing way to preserve a rich person. The other vision of immortality in Avatar, though, is Awa, the spirit tree. I feel stupid explaining this, but it's such a good metaphor, though. It is really good. And it's a good movie, too. So the blue people on Pandora have a spirit tree that they interface with. And when they die, they kind of get absorbed into the spirit tree. And in the last scene, we see Jake Sully jack into the Matrix and like talk to his son. He gets to relive a memory that he had of his son. And his wife is there. And it's very touching because the son has just died and sacrificed his life and everything.
Look what I caught.
Wow, it's a big one. What is it, Dad? Why are you crying? I'm just happy to see you, boy.
Of course, his son is dead, but his son lives in the memories of the people who knew him. And to me, that is a much more like human and moving and philosophically fulfilling way to process our mortality. Knowing that, yes, you will die. Everyone will die, but that you will live on in a way because you've made an impact on the world. Your art and your love that you gave to fellow humans will persist after your death. And so all that we can really hope for is to just make a good impact on the people around us while we're alive. And this is sort of the view that most people have had throughout history, I think. There's a reason that elites used to build cathedrals and monuments and stuff, instead of like paying alchemists to try and chef them up some immortality elixir, because they realized that the only real path to immortality is building something that will outlast you. And they did it by employing hundreds of people who were highly skilled, who were pursuing their techne. But nowadays, that sort of like social bond, I think, is loosening. And capitalism and rugged individualism and sort of scientific progress have convinced us that the only real thing to do is just to try and preserve our own egos, to hang on as me.
Surely this is all for me. Me? Me, I'm so important.
I think that is flawed, and I think there's a lot of hubris there, you know? There's something almost mythical about this whole situation. You know, I could make allusions to the Tower of Babel or Icarus or Frankenstein, but I think you get the point. As out of pocket as their comments are, I think that people talking about Bryan getting hit by a bus have their finger on the pulse here a little bit. Because if this were a myth, like, you can't tell me that isn't how this story would end. I don't want that to happen. Honestly, I wish Bryan Johnson well. I think his work is really interesting, and I honestly hope his research proves useful because he's clearly a very dedicated individual. But there's one thing that I hope for more than anything else. I hope that Bryan Johnson has made peace with the fact that no matter how much blood he consumes, no matter how many pills he swallows, he is going to die. Because fate loves irony, and no one cheats the Reaper.